Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, the show where you get the inside access to the best minds in the game. Each week, Chris has the privilege of chatting with top instructors, legendary players, course architects, and industry insiders. If you're looking to improve your game, gain a new perspective, or just hear some incredible golf stories, you are indeed in the right place.
You see, Chris, let me tell you something. I haven't spoken to a press man in my life that is knowledgeable, seriously, as you are. Never.
You do such a great job. It kind of makes me feel good all of a sudden.
You do so much for the game. You're so kind to all of us that are out there in the game. You know, we need more people like you in the game of golf.
Thank you for pressing play. Now, grab your clubs, step up to the tee, and let's get started. This is Next on the Tee.
Hi, folks, and welcome into this edition of Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and it's so wonderful to have you all here with me again this week. I've got 3 guests that I'm looking forward to sharing with you this week that are flat out going to knock your socks off. I'm going to start things off with a guy that I consider to be the greatest golf writer of this or any other time. I get to have him back with me after just joining me not all that long ago, and that is Ron Sirak. Like I say, he joined me a few weeks ago, had so much fun that I wanted to get him back on the show as soon as possible. This time around, I get Ron's thoughts on what we're all talking about, right? What we all saw and heard at the Ryder Cup. Ron mentions that perhaps the European team is going to run it back with Luke Donald and the same players until we prove we can beat them, right? So we may need to get used to some of those faces based on what's been going on. We also discussed whether the U.S. team should look outside of the game of golf for its next captain. Perhaps we need a better motivator, and I suggest at least someone who isn't one of their buddies. So might that be someone like a Coach K, or a Nick Saban, or a Michael Jordan who is at all of these events? Just somebody different, a different voice, a different attitude that those guys might look up to, respect, and respond to. So we'll get Ron's thoughts on that. He is from Western Pennsylvania, so we got to sneak a little Steelers talk in there as well. And like I said, Ron's fantastic. I love spending time with him. I think you're really going to enjoy him again this time around as well. Following him, top instructor Jeff Smith makes his 4th appearance with me here on Next on the Tee. Jeff is a Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor and one of the most sought-after instructors in the country. I joke that he needs one of those now serving numbers for the amount of clubs looking to entice Jeff to come on board with him. The Vintage Club out in Indian Wells, California is the lucky club that gets to have him right now. Jeff also shares his Ryder Cup thoughts with us. We dip back in time a little. Remember that Sam Wyche situation back when he was with the Cincinnati Bengals, their head coach? Remember things got kind of out of hand and they got a bad call and the fans were throwing stuff down onto the field and he got on the PA system and kind of berated them and said, "You don't live in Cleveland?" Well, maybe that's what we're going to need the European team to do when we get over to the 2027 Ryder Cup over in Ireland. Maybe a Shane Lowry is going to have to remind the fans that they don't live in New York when they start to give us the same kind of business that our folks were giving to them. So that's going to be an interesting kind of thing. Anyway, we kick that around. We'll also get some tips from Jeff for how not to overthink when we're out on the golf course and how failure teaches us what success cannot. And like I say, Jeff is just one of the all-time great people in our game. He's going to join me about, half an hour or so from now. Then be sure to come back for part 2 because David Eby makes his next On the Tee debut. David played his college golf at Augusta University, was Augusta College back in the day when he was there in the late 80s. You'll hear how he and his teammates laid the foundation there when they won a couple of conference championships. Then a handful of years later, Patrick Reed and his teammates won back-to-back national championships. But like I say, it was David and his teammates that got them on the road for that kind of success. David also caddied over at Augusta National while he was in college. You'll hear some of the great names that he got to loop for, plus the rounds that he played there, what his scores were, what his impressions of playing out, getting that opportunity, right? The opportunity we're all dying for to go play Augusta National. He talks about some of that. He also was an assistant pro at a few clubs in and around Ohio and Virginia. You'll hear about some of the great places that he got to be an assistant pro at. Before now, spending nearly the last 30 years down at Banyan Golf Club in Palm Beach, Florida. He has a ton of great stories that you're really going to enjoy. So be sure to come back and press play on part 2. So, folks, as always, my gratitude goes out to each and every one of you for pressing play and for making Next on the Tee a part of your regular golf content. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for this part of the show for a little over an hour and part two for a little over a half an hour. Relax. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the show. You know how I like to get things rolling by starting off and ending every show by thanking my friends over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. TribLive.com is the leading news website for Western Pennsylvania with news around the clock. Pittsburgh pro sports coverage, a high school sports network, a podcast network, which you can find Next on the Tee on. So go out and bookmark TribLive.com or download the Trib Live app for free and stay up to date with all the news in Western Pennsylvania and this show. I want to welcome a new member to the Next on the Tee family, Sunday Swagger. Tired of boring golf clothes? Sunday Swagger is changing the game with premium performance apparel that delivers the look and feel of $100 polos for much, much less. Never sacrificing on style or comfort, their bold polos, shorts, and outerwear feature four-way stretch and moisture-wicking fabric that moves with you, whether you're crushing drives or crushing happy hour. With over 300 unique designs and vibrant colors, ranging from bestsellers like Jawbreaker to exclusive collaborations with Guinness, Sunday Swagger offers something for everybody. And their matching prints for couples and families with children are flying off the shelves as their most popular styles. You might even recognize Sunday Swagger designs in popular Hollywood movies and TV shows, including Happy Gilmore 2. Sunday Swagger is guaranteed to turn heads and spark conversation. Visit SundaySwagger.com and join the Sunday Club for exclusive drops and member benefits. Sunday Swagger. It's your swagger. Embrace it. Own it. And folks, this year, get ready to experience the game like you've never experienced it before at the Keep. It's the brand new Bill Bergen and Reese Jones co-designed course up at Macklemore. Nestled high atop Lookout Mountain, the Keep offers breathtaking vistas that are even more spectacular in person than they are in the pictures and the videos. With its challenging layout and awe-inspiring views, every round there is an unforgettable adventure. Whether you're taking on the signature holes or just soaking in the scenery, the Keep is where your best golf meets nature's finest backdrop. So grab your clubs and join us up at Macklemore this year. The Keep is open for preview play and it's waiting for you. But you gotta hurry now because spots and availability are filling up fast. So don't wait. Check out both courses, the Highlands and the Keep, for yourself online at themacklemore.com. And then do yourself and your buddies, or yourself and your family a solid by getting your spot reserved now. And experience distance and forgiveness all at once with the new QI35 driver from TaylorMade. QI35 is designed to give golfers more distance from more of the face while maintaining maximized forgiveness through high MOI designs. Whether you're looking for low spin and maximum workability or easy launch and plenty of adjustability, it's available in low spin, core, and max models. QI35 also has a full assortment of fairway woods and rescues to deliver distance and forgiveness throughout the top end of your bag. Check them all out online at TaylorMadeGolf.com. Okay, now back in Next on the Tee with me is a guy that I had the privilege of spending some time with recently back in early August, and he is so great that I wanted to get him back on the show as quickly as possible, and that's Ron Sirak. As you guys know, Ron is one of the great writers of all time. He is from My Nape of the Vine up in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, which is about 50 miles north of Pittsburgh, near the Pennsylvania-Ohio border. He attended Franklin and Marshall College in Lancaster, PA, where he wrote for the Lancaster Independent Press. His first job in golf was filling the pop coolers at Castle Hills Golf Course in his hometown. You probably know Ron's work now as a senior writer for Golf Digest and a regular contributor over on the Golf Channel. He was also an executive director for Golf World. Prior to that, he worked for the Associated Press for 18 years, the first 7 of which was as a supervising news editor before becoming deputy sports editor and then a writer. He's co-authored 3 books alongside of Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott, entitled Every Shot Must Have a Purpose, The Game Before the Game, and Play Your Best Golf Now. He's also written a biography for young people about Greg Norman. 2015 was a great year for Ron. He received the PGA of America Lifetime Achievement Award in Journalism and the Media Excellence Award from the LPGA. He also received the Lincoln Worden Journalism Award from the Metropolitan Golf Writers Association. Back in 2021, he was inducted into the Western Pennsylvania Golf Association Hall of Fame, and I could not be more thrilled to have Ron back with me again this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Ron, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to be on with you, Chris.
So, Ron, here we are. We're a couple of weeks north of the Ryder Cup. I got to start off by getting your feelings about what you saw and heard.
Well, I expected it to be rowdy and a little bit bizarre, but it was more intense than I thought it was going to be. I'll use the word, it was worse than I thought it was going to be. It just seems like we've evolved into this situation in our culture now where our opponents aren't our opponents, they're our enemies. And we don't just want to beat them, we want to hate them. And boy, there was a lot of that going on down there. And because it was an international competition, and they were going after Rory McIlroy, which sort of astounds me because the guy's lived in the United States for a long time now. He was one of the most vocal supporters of the PGA Tour against Live Golf, and he's a huge fan favorite at PGA Tour events. But they were all over him, and the whole atmosphere was, I thought, very unsavory.
You wrote an article that's posted out there on your website, ronsirak.com, about how far we've strayed from civility in a game that guarded it and treasured it for centuries. Do you think what we saw at Bethpage, that's just kind of a one-time thing, or is the genie out of the bottle now, Ron?
Well, there's a lot going on out there. Look, they had to rein in the party hole at the Phoenix Open, the waste management tournament in Phoenix, that par 3, number 16, where they have bleachers built for 20,000 people around there, and people get drunk and rowdy. And we are seeing some of that come into the game. Look, golf was in a recession as a participatory sport for about 20 years, and some things started to bring it back. COVID was a boon for golf. Non-traditional golf activities like Topgolf have brought young people into the game. But all of that is bringing a different atmosphere in there too. I don't think that what we saw at Bethpage is something that we are going to see at regular PGA Tour events. It'll be interesting to see what happens the next time the Ryder Cup comes back to the United States.
On the course, Ron, I felt like we were in trouble kind of coming out of the gate when I saw Colin Morikawa being paired with Harris English. I thought, I don't know about that one. Morikawa has not played all that well consistently this season. Plus, he's been through 5 caddies at one point, which is never a good sign. The data said that pairing him with English was 132 out of 132 for the best possible pairings. And then when the U.S. dropped the first 2 matches in front of them, boy, I was really nervous. Like, this is not going well. And then I was even more stumped when Keegan doubled down on having those guys paired back again with each other in the Saturday foursome matches, and then they go out and then they drop that match as well. Were you concerned when you saw how things were going, some of the pairings that Keegan put together? Did you have a nervous moment there to think this certainly doesn't look like it's going to fare very well for us?
Luke Donald just kicked Keegan Bradley's butt as a captain, and I think that what we saw was the fact that Luke Donald was doing it for the second time, and he had that experience out there. Not only did English and Morikawa get beat 5-3 in their foursomes match, they sent them back out again the next day in foursomes,
right,
where they got waxed again. I don't get that. I remember I was in 2004 in Detroit when Hal Sutton was the captain, and he pairs Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, which everybody knew wasn't going to work, and he did the same thing. They got beat, and then he paired them again. I don't get that. You look too at what Luke Donald did. He had one rookie on his team, Rasmus Højgaard, and he hit him. He only played him one session of the first 4 sessions, and then we didn't see him again until singles. And that's European captains are always less shy about hiding their weak links, and the Americans sometimes get into this thing of like, oh, everybody's got to be out there and playing, but I don't think Keegan Bradley had a good Ryder Cup. I'll tell you something else that I think that he messed up was the course setup. The home captain gets to set the course up, the width of the fairways, the height of the rough. The whole locations are done by the PGA of America, but he sets up the golf course, and they really turned a brute of a golf course, Bethpage, into a pitch and putt golf course because there was virtually no rough. Guys were just playing bomb and gouge golf, and it became a game of whoever could control the spin on their wedges the best and putt the best was going to win. And the Europeans, that played right into their hands. You look at Justin Rose and John Rahm and Shane Lowry. They were just knocking down pins after pins with short irons.
Yeah, to your point, Ron, I think that's something that Keegan has come out afterwards and said that they didn't set up the course properly in the way that they wanted it to. But I guess I scratched my head about that. I mean, you had years to think about this. You certainly had all of this year running up to this event to figure out how you wanted to do it. You had all kinds of co-captains and other people you could have relied on. Hell, you could have called Reese Jones, who did all the work out there to talk about that sort of thing. How do you go all year long and in a 2-year run up to an event like this and get that wrong?
Yeah, that was just that's just poor planning, and and then it rains early in the week, and so the course it softens, which makes the fairways play wider, turns the greens into dartboards, and the players are playing with their ball in their hand. They can pick up and boy, you let PGA Tour players pick up their golf ball and place it back down, they're going to knock pins down there. But Keegan did not have a good Ryder Cup at all. And here's another thing that I think, Chris, that we really saw there is match play is a whole different mentality than stroke play. Stroke play, 72-hole stroke play tournament, Scottie Scheffler's the best player in the world. But in match play, you're playing 18 one-hole matches. And I don't think the Americans make that adjustment, that mental adjustments to the aggressiveness you got to bring to match play that the Europeans do. Also, the European players play with a partner better than the Americans do. Look back, Tiger Woods had he played in 8 Ryder Cups. He had, in singles, he was 4-2-2, 4 wins, 2 losses, 2 ties. In the 4-ball and the foursomes matches, he was the combined 9-19-1. And I'm getting the feeling that Scottie Scheffler's that kind of guy too. He doesn't want to have a partner. He plays better when he's out there by himself. How many times did you see the Europeans helping each other line up a putt? They totally buy into having a partner out there better than the Americans.
So let's take that a step further, Ron, because to your point, it feels like what we saw here at Bethpage was a microcosm of who we are, the U.S. team. We hardly won any of the team events, if you will. Right. To your point, guys going out with partners. And then we almost run the table and do the miracle on turf and win almost all of the singles matches. So it's like we're really good as individuals, but we're really bad at being team players.
There was no way I thought it was going to be after the way they won all 4 of the team sessions going into singles. There was no way I thought that they were going to it was going to be that close at the end. But I think Europe's mistake. I think they went into a prevent defense, and we know how that always works out.
Yeah.
When you go into the prevent defense, you let the other team score points. But it is a mindset thing. It's adjusting to match play. It's adjusting to having a partner out there and buying into that. And I think too that team play is part of the European culture. They grew up with World Cup soccer. They grew up with international competitions in soccer, in golf, between the countries, and they had that much more of that mindset. The only time the Americans really come close to that is once every 4 years in the Olympics. But the Europeans, it truly is their 5th major championship, the Ryder Cup. It really matters to them. They really want to win it.
I guess here's where I still struggle, Ron, because I look over on the ladies' side and at the Solheim Cup. I mean, we're not dominating that thing, but at least we're 3-3-1 in the last 7. But the Americans can't seem to pull that off on the men's side. And even if you go back a little further, the U.S. takes a little bit steeper of an advantage, here going back to the early part of the 2000s. Why are the ladies so much better at this than the men?
Well, I do think that they buy into the camaraderie of the event better. I've always felt it was always my feeling at a Ryder Cup that the European players go in looking at it as a week-long fraternity party, and the American players go into it looking at it as root canal surgery. It's like the European guys all have a blast, and if you saw any of the videos of their celebrations afterwards, I mean, they went in there to have fun, and they did. And the Americans sort of go in like it's an arduous thing that they got to do. Like I said, it's like we're going to the dentist. No, you're not. You're playing a golf tournament, and you got to get out there and you got to embrace the craziness of it. It's a different atmosphere, no question about it. But you got to embrace that atmosphere. And the Europeans embraced the atmosphere, even though there was a lot of hostility directed towards them. It really motivated them. Those first 2 days, they were riding a wave of the way Rory was being abused. It made Shane Lowry play really, really well when he was Rory's partner.
Well, Ron, I think you hit the nail on the head, because that is one of the things you talk about, how the U.S. team kind of used this event versus the European team. I kind of feel like at the end of the PGA Tour season, and it's a long, arduous season, and I get that, but I think our guys just want to go home. And they take to your point about whether it's a fraternity sort of atmosphere, but I think they look at it as, yay, we get to go do this thing. And we look at it like, oh my God, I got to go do this thing. I think that mindset starts you out behind the 8 ball before the thing even starts.
No, they pencil in. They've got a Dare Manor in Ireland on their schedule right now, and I can guarantee you there's 50 guys on European players out there right now who that is their main goal for this next 2 years, is to qualify for the Ryder Cup. And they were inspired by it was starting in '85 when since '85 Europe has really pretty much dominated it, and they were led by Seve Ballesteros and Sandy Lyle and Nick Faldo and Colin Montgomery, Lee Westwood, Darren Clark, a great generation of players, and who really set the bar for this next generation to come along. And they all look at it. And here's something else that's got to concern the Americans. Some of the best young players on the European team, like Matthew Fitzpatrick and Victor Hovland and Ludwig Aberg, are only going to get better. They're getting more used to this, and they're going to get better.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned, Shane Lowry, I think one of the things that was telling is listening to his interview after he makes that big putt to essentially, it didn't win it for them, but it got them to the tie so they could retain the cup. But he talked about how that tournament or that event is the most important thing to him. He's like, winning the Open was nice. This is better. That tells you how their mindset is.
My daughter, who grew up in New York City and now lives in Los Angeles and doesn't really follow golf very much at all. At one point over the weekend, she sends me a text and she just says, "I love Shane Lowry." Yeah. She just was totally bought in to the enthusiasm that he was bringing out there. And I think he became, and that's another thing that you see. The European team is knee deep in leaders, emotional leaders on that team. Who was the emotional leader for the American team? Now, maybe DeChambeau, maybe Justin Thomas had a lot of it out there, but you just saw it on the European side. And somebody like Justin Rose, the oldest guy on both teams, led in a much more quiet way. But when you see somebody, Rahm was very demonstrative out there, and Lowry, Tyrrell Hatton, they're just so many emotional players who are buying into it, and they all become team leaders.
You mentioned how Højgaard was the only rookie on the team, and how young this team is overall. Mm-hmm. But if you're Luke Donald, do you run it back with these same guys? Maybe there's one guy different here or there. Maybe Højgaard makes it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe there's another guy that comes in. But do you run this thing back for as long as possible? Because there's just simply doesn't appear to be any reason to change it up.
Yeah, he brought 11 of the 12 players back from the victory in Europe
right.
2 years ago, and I think that he did that. And this was another way in which the Europeans were smarter than us. They wanted an experienced captain. They knew Bethpage was going to be a very, very hostile atmosphere. They knew it was going to be an intense atmosphere. So they made Luke Donald, brought him back as captain because, hey, we want a captain who's experienced at doing this. So that's one less variable in the complicated equation for how to win. And I think that they viewed their players the same way. Donald wanted as much experience in that team, guys who knew what the crucible of a Ryder Cup atmosphere, and we're not going to be intimidated by it, but feel good about it. I think 2 years from now, it's going to be about who's playing the best golf. You do like to have. There are certain players like John Rahm is somebody that I want on that team all the time. Because he's one of those ones who's going to raise his game to that level. But I think he's gonna have no shortage of players to choose from. I would think it wouldn't be a bad idea if Europe makes Luke Donald be captain for a third time.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned Live Golf a little bit ago. It seems like they embrace the guys like a Hatton, like a John Rahm. They don't seem to mind as much that they've got a Live player in there. But going into the event, right, the tournament prior that Scotty won, they wouldn't let Bryson go in there and be a part of that because we don't want to hurt our egos or our pride. And it seems like they view it differently. Is pride getting in our way of looking at some of those guys on the Live side that might make this team better?
Well, again, I think it's part of the team mentality that the European side has. I can tell you as a fact that for almost 2 years, whatever it is, 1 year and 51 weeks, most of the people on the European tour despised Sergio Garcia. They thought he was a pain in the neck. But that 1 week he was their teammate, they loved him because they knew he was going to annoy the Americans the same way that he annoys them. But, they weren't fans of Sergio, but they embraced him on Ryder Cup week. And I think that's the way that they look at John Rahm and Terrell Hatton. It's like, okay, they sort of betrayed our tour and went to Live Golf. But this 1 week, they're our teammates, and we got to wrap our arms around them.
One of the big questions heading into the matches was whether Keegan was going to be the first playing captain since Mr. Palmer back in 1963. And hindsight is always 20/20, right? But do you think anything would have changed if Keegan would have been a part of the team as opposed to the captain?
I think he did the right thing in not being the playing captain because that would have just been another distraction going on out there. It would have been another part of the story that and the Americans didn't need any more distractions. So I think he did the right thing. I don't think, I look at like who could he have replaced on, who would have thought that Russell Henley would play as poorly as he played the whole time? You try to think who would he have replaced there. I do think that going into the Ryder Cup, that Keegan Bradley was one of the 12 best American players. But I think he made the right decision in not trying to be a playing captain.
Should the PGA of America consider looking outside of golf for someone who might be a great leader of the team, someone like a Coach K or a Michael Jordan or a Nick Saban, or just maybe someone who isn't their buddy like Bob Ford or a guy on the Champions Tour who's been there and done that? Have the U.S. captains just been too close to the players and we need to reach back to, I don't know, maybe even a Paul Azinger, someone who can step in and lead the team next time around?
That's a possibility that they may have to do. When the PGA first said they were going to take the Ryder Cup to Bethpage, they thought that Phil Mickelson was going to be the captain.
Right.
New Yorkers love Phil Mickelson. They love Phil Mickelson more than they love Tiger Woods because he's got that New York kind of personality. He looks you in the eye and slaps hands with you and engages with the people. So they thought it was going to be Phil. Then Phil went to Live Golf, and that ruined that. Then they wanted Tiger, and for reasons that I still haven't figured out, Tiger didn't want to do it. I heard that they talked to a couple of other people, and then finally Keegan became about the fourth or fifth choice, and he ended up doing it because he played his college golf there. At St. John's, he played at Bethpage. I'm hearing a lot of people say that okay, they need Nick Saban or they need something like that. It would be an interesting gimmick to try. I know that the Women's European Solheim Cup team in 1998 made Pia Nielsen the captain, and Pia Nielsen is an instructor who I've written 3 books with, and it didn't work out well. Now I tend to think that the American team was just a whole lot better, but it's sometimes good to have a captain who is very familiar with the players, who knows them personally, knows their games. And that's the danger that you have if you reach to somebody from outside the golf community.
We've essentially got 3 more months until the real start of the next PGA Tour season. But Ron, are there things that you're still interested to see golf-wise going on out there over the winter? Or does your laptop maybe need a little rest and we'll see you again at the Century in early January?
Well, to me, the story that's going to be going into next season, and and I think made this point to you before, is the three greatest winners I ever covered: Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, Annika Sorenstam. And what made them special is they not only forgot their losses, they forgot their wins immediately. They never got tired of winning. They just piled victory upon victory. They'd win a tournament and go out the next week and play with the same intensity as if they'd never won a tournament in their life. And I'm going to be very curious to see if Scottie Scheffler can keep up that kind of fire going. We're now into like year 3 of a really pretty dominant run by him. And, Tiger did it for a dozen years. Jack did it for 25 years, and Annika did it for 10 or 12 years. It'll be interesting to see if Scottie keeps that fire going and can continue to pile those victories on top of each other.
Ron, just a couple more before I let you go. And back in February of 1998, you wrote an article saying Jack Nicklaus should be given an exemption to play in the U.S. Open for life, and then went out in April and finished 6th in the Masters at age 58 that year. But talk about why you thought he and Mr. Palmer really deserved to play whenever they wanted to.
Because of everything they did for the game. If you're having a conversation of who the greatest players of all time were, Jack Nicklaus is certainly in that conversation. If you're having a conversation about who the most important player of all times was, it's Arnold Palmer. And in my mind, nobody else. He was the most important. And what they meant to the game, how they grew the popularity of it. Think of when they came along. Arnold in particular, TV was just discovering the commercial potential of live sports, And who televised better than Arnold Palmer, with that corkscrew finish and the dynamic way he attacked the golf course, the movie star, good looks, everything about him was fit perfectly, and that grew the game. I think I've said this to you before, that my dad was a steel worker in Western Pennsylvania. He took up golf in 1955, the year Arnold won his first PGA Tour event. Arnold won his first Masters in 1958. By 1960, every steel mill in Western Pennsylvania had a 9-hole golf league, and that was because of Arnold Palmer. So those two guys and what they did to grow the game, and what they did to really, can you imagine, how Arnold would have reacted to what happened to Bethpage? I'm sort of surprised and a little disappointed that Jack didn't, get more involved in being critical of what was there. But they say they really were emblematic of the culture of the game, and that civility, that respect for your opponent, that respect for the rules.
Yeah, I would have guessed following the Ryder Cup, if Mr. Palmer was still alive, you might have gotten a summons to come to his office and have a conversation, because I think he would have wanted to put something out there, whether it was in a TV interview or in an interview with you in any one of the magazines and places that you write for. I'm guessing he would have had a pretty strong opinion about how it went down.
Yeah, Arnold was always very strong with his opinions, and both praiseworthy and critical. But Arnold had that incredibly innate ability to be critical without being cruel, and that's a gift, to be able to evaluate something and point out the flaws and its negativeness, and without being attacking. And Arnold was brilliant at that.
So, Ron, here we are. We're at about the quarter pole of the NFL season. I got to ask you about our Pittsburgh Steelers. We're 3-1, and based on the condition of all the other teams in the AFC North, I'm feeling pretty good. Now, I know they still got the same teams that went out and beat the other guys in our division. Those guys are still on our schedule, but I'm feeling pretty good at 3-1.
Didn't we go down this road last year too? Where we like 5-1 or 6-1 or something, and then we lose the last 5. We had the division in our hands. But what's happening this year is every other team is just falling apart. The Ravens and the Bengals have injuries. The Browns are the Browns, and
as Juju once said, right? The Browns is the Browns.
That's it, and that's so funny for me, because when I was a kid, the Browns-Steeler rivalry was the rivalry.
Yes.
And then the Browns moved to Baltimore, and it became, and for those of us the Ravens are still the Browns in my mind.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron, before I let you go, remind our listeners one more time about how they can go out there, pick up the books that you've written, find your articles, and follow you on your website and on social media.
Well, if you Google Vision 54, you'll find the Vision 54 website, and the books are also available on Amazon. There are the 3 Vision 54 books, and you can also find my stuff on my website, ronsirak.com, and I'm on and follow me on Twitter too at Ron Sirak.
Ron, I can't thank you enough for being generous with your time again this week. You're just one of my favorite people on the planet. You're such a treasure. I hope we get this privilege of getting to spend some time with you again before too long.
It's always a joy to be on with you, and talk to you down the road, my friend.
Take care, Ron. All the best to you and your family. We'll catch up soon.
Yep.
See you, Ron. That's a great Ron Sirak, folks. Vision 54 is where you can get those 3 books. RonSirak.com, fantastic website, and he's got some of his articles there, which we talked a little bit about during the course of our conversation. And then follow him out on social media at Ron Sirak as well. You just want to talk about a guy who is, in my opinion, the greatest golf writer of this or any other time. You just heard him talking. Ron Sirak is a fantastic individual. He's a legend in our game, and he is just good people. That's the bottom line. He is just good people. We'll get him back on the show again, hopefully before too long. Coming up next, as you guys know, is Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor Jeff Smith. You also know how much Jeff has meant to me over the years. A great instructor and a 10 times better human being, sought after by just about every club out there. Before I bring him into the show, though, I want to remind you about our friends over at On Point Golf and their out-of-this-world On Point Golf Ball Marker. And if you don't have one, folks, you really need to go check it out at onpointgolf.us. Get the #1 ball marker in the game of golf. On Point is the only 3-dimensional ball marker out there, with alignment technology and a removable coin that is approved to use according to the rules of golf. As you know, putting is all about line and pace. Mark your ball with On Point, engage with your 3-dimensional ball marker, and have more confidence in your line. Execute the putt, and you're going to lower your scores. Do what the likes of Jim Furyk, PGA professionals, and amateurs alike are doing now. They use the #1 ball marker in golf, and they lower their scores. You know Ken Duke and Thongchai JD. They won for the first time on the PGA Tour in 2023, and they were using an on-point ball marker. Get yours at onpointgolf.us and make more putts. And oh, by the way, you can also customize the removable coin for any club, event, or corporate outing. They make really great tee gifts and custom products. That's also going to help lower your score. I use on-point ball markers. Mine is black and gold, 3D black golf ball with a gold line down the middle to help me line up my putts. It's like having a 15th club in my bag. It's helped my game. Why wouldn't you let it help yours? Again, onpointgolf.us. See what I'm talking about. Order yours today. I also want to remind you about our wonderful friends over at Squares Golf.
So Nick here. What if there was a golf shoe embraced by hundreds of thousands of golfers, celebrated for its stability, comfort and distance? What if this shoe earned the title of most technologically advanced golf shoe by Sports Illustrated? And what if the company behind that shoe spent the last year perfecting a brand new category of golf footwear? Well, the what if is here. Introducing the all-new Pro S2 LT by Squares, a new class all of its own, the perfect blend of lightweight comfort and stable performance. You'll notice the difference. Change your shoes, change your game. Squares.
I also want to give a special shout out to our wonderful friends over at the Pittsburgh Brewing Company. Their pumpkin ale is back, folks. It's the #1 selling pumpkin beer in Western Pennsylvania, and incredibly popular everywhere their beer is sold. Why? Because it's everything you love about beer, disguised as everything you love about homemade pumpkin pie. Go online to pittsburghbrewing.com to check that one out. Plus, their other great beers, including the Blockhouse Blueberry Wheat, along with my family's favorites, Iron City and Icy Light, of course. Check all of that out and everything else they've got going on this fall by going online to pittsburghbrewing.com. Now back in making his 4th appearance with me here on Next on the Tee is Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor Jeff Smith. Among Jeff's many accolades, he has also been named the top instructor in the state of Indiana. He is also a top 100 growth of the game teaching professional. He was named the 2018 Indiana PGA Player Development Award winner and the 2020 Indiana PGA Teacher of the Year. Going back to his college days, Jeff earned his degree in psychology and economics at Indiana University. These days, Jeff is incredibly sought after. He has spent the winter months down at the Bonita Bay Club down in Bonita Springs, Florida. In the summer, he's been out at Flagstaff, Arizona, at Pine Canyon, and their sister course, Talking Rock in Prescott, Arizona. There's also been Jeff Smith sightings out at the Vintage Club in Indian Wells, California. And rumor has it his car has one of those pick a number roll things like you see at the deli. Clubs come up and pull a number and speak with him, and Jeff calls out, now serving number 472. Hey, what's your offer? If all of that wasn't enough, you probably know him as the co-host of one of the best golf podcasts anywhere, Those Weekend Golf Guys, along with John Ashton. You can check them out online at thoseweekendgolfguys.com or on your favorite podcast app. And boy, I just could not be more honored. I get to spend some more time with Jeff this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Jeff, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm just doing great. Thanks for having me on again. I certainly, this is one of the greatest podcasts ever. If you like golf, this is fantastic because you pull in some of the best people on this podcast that I love to listen to, and I'm just glad to be here. The thing that I do is we're just messing around. We're having a good time talking golf, and we don't talk about the tours, and we just mess around talking about golf for just everybody. And it's fun.
Yeah, and you guys do a great job at it. All right, so in the immortal words of Billy Squire, everybody wants you. Update us on what's been going on with you this summer.
Well, I've been teaching a lot at I'm the director of instruction for a great company called Symmetry, and they own Pine Canyon in Flagstaff, Arizona, and Talking Rock Ranch in Prescott, Arizona. And so I get to go to both places and do some classes, do some clinics, and do a lot of individual lessons and get a lot of on-course lessons. And it's fantastic to be out there. Both those golf courses are just beautiful. In Pine Canyon and Flagstaff is probably one of the best mountain golf courses that I've ever seen. There's ups, there's downs, there's sideways, everything's beautiful. You just look at it and you're like, wow, every day I get there, I'm just shaking my head going, I'm so lucky to be here.
So where are we going to get to catch up with you this winter?
Well, this winter, I'm like last winter. I'm no longer in South Florida. I really love the Bonita Bay Club. It was terrific. Those people down there are wonderful. And but I had this wonderful opportunity to become the director of instruction at the Vintage Club in Indian Wells, California. And that's just one of those things that you look at, and I'm truly humbled to be there. It's a fantastic place with fantastic people, and I'm looking forward to going back. We get back there about a month from now. Is opening day, mid-November, and we get rolling. And it's a little slower start because it's right there at the Thanksgiving holiday, and then followed up by Christmas and New Year's. But man, as soon as New Year's rolls around, we are absolutely just cranking. An awful lot of teaching, golf schools galore. We are having a great time.
All right, so switching gears a little bit, Jeff, as you might have heard in the first segment, I was talking to Ron Sirak. We were kind of bemoaning what we saw at the Ryder Cup. I got to get your thoughts about what you saw and what you heard.
It saddens me, actually. This is the crowd is no longer accepting the notion that golf is a gentleman's game. And it was really sad to see that we don't treat people well. It's a friendly competition. Yes, there's money involved because the players are getting paid, and we can think of that all we want to, one way or the other. But it's a big event. It means a lot to the players. The history of it means a lot. And I hate to think that there was just zero respect shown for the competitors. And you hear what you hear. We've all seen the stories of who was saying what and all kinds of things. And it's just I look at it from the big picture perspective of what happened to us. Why do we do that?
Yeah. So let's take that a step further, Jeff. I mean, is the genie out of the bottle? Can we put it back in? Is the U.S. team in for it? Are we in for it next time when we get to Ireland in 2027? What are your thoughts?
When we get there, I understand Rory's a big big player. He's a big boy. He can handle an awful lot of things. But, I think right now, I think it's so raw that I think, and I don't know about the Irish people, but I'm assuming that they'd be a lot like us if one of our own was being disrespected in that way, that loudly and that often, that they're going to be a little bit bent out of shape about that. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they decided to respond in kind when we get over there. But I also know that they have a sense of tradition and a rich history. And I know that they understand that golf is a gentleman's game. And I'm hoping that will matter more than just a little bit of retaliation. I hope so.
You know what's struck me, Jeff, and I meant to talk about this with Ron in the last segment, but you may remember this back in the 80s. There was a game that the Cincinnati Bengals were playing, and they got a bad call, and the fans started throwing things down onto the field, and the officials went to Sam Wyche, and Sam Wyche got on the PA announcement and told them to cut it out, that you don't live in Cleveland. I can almost see Shane Lowry, when that happens over in Ireland, yelling at the fans, telling them you don't live in the U.S.
Yeah, or specifically New York.
Right.
And I don't have anything against the New York crowd. I really don't. It just seems to happen there. The last two Ryder Cups that have been there have been pretty rough on the European squad. But I was at the one at Whistling Straits. And now I do know that was a COVID year, and that there weren't a lot of Europeans in the crowd. But I was there at Whistling Straits, and we didn't treat the European players poorly there. There wasn't a whole lot of that going on, and I don't think it had anything to do with the presence of many or not very many of the European fans. I just think that it was a little different crowd altogether. And maybe the Midwestern folks are just a little bit easier as spectators than the folks in New York.
Jeff, is the U.S. media, are we partially to blame for what happened? Because with the run-up to this Ryder Cup, we kept really kind of stoking the fires of the New York fans. And can they get under the skin of the European players? We talked about Sergio and what happened the last time we were in New York with Sergio and them doing the 1, 2, 3, 4 as he would have the, kind of regripping in the yips and that sort of thing. So we were kind of stoking the flames a little bit. So can the U.S. media kind of hold ourselves a little bit to blame for what happened?
I would agree with that. And I, since I have a podcast and you have a podcast, we're considering ourselves media, right?
Yep.
But I think so. I think that media is hyperbole based, and I think that they're trying to sell things. They're trying to sell their media outlet, and they're trying to get commercials and sponsors and all that. And I think that using that kind of rhetoric gets them a little bit amped, and then the media is a little bit more I think they're a little bit more culpable in this than what a lot of people might want to think, because they could have gone the other way. They could have said, we didn't do such a great job as fans last time, New York. Why don't we show them a little bit of decorum? Why don't we show them what New Yorkers actually can be in terms of good golf fans and behave as we should? They could have done that, but none of them did.
Yeah, I thought it was particularly bad. I don't remember the young lady's name that was pushing the crowd on with the F you Rory, in the morning. I know she got let go right away, but I mean,
and I think that was probably appropriate. I just don't think that that's right. I think she probably got caught up in the moment of trying to get people jazzed up. But man, I'm not so sure you needed to. And I'm sure that you didn't need to do it that way.
Agreed. Jeff, in the mix with all of this, I feel like the PGA of America could have done a better job. And I'm not going to name names and throw out the quote, but it feels like they could have gotten control of this thing and come out while it was going on and reined it all in instead of afterwards really kind of sidestepping it before finally coming through with a formal apology. I don't know. What are your thoughts on what the PGA of America could have done differently or better?
Yeah, I think about that just a little bit, thinking this is an event run by the PGA of America. And certainly they could have grabbed microphones, and we could have had some of our leaders there say, all right, just, do what Sam Wyche did and said, hey, let's be better. Let's be better. And I wish they would have. I wish they would have. And I wish that the leadership would have taken that tack and headed it off at the pass. And then I understand that, after they didn't, there's certainly, a bunch of people saying this and that and how they should have done. And, arrows are being thrown that way. And, I don't know. I'm not sure how to voice my opinion on that. I just wish they would have stepped in and grabbed a microphone and said, we're not going to behave this way, people. Yeah. I just wish they would have.
Switching over to the Europeans team and their dominance in this event, why can't the U.S. team understand the team concept like the European team is able to do?
Well, interestingly enough, right, here we are. I think if you just look back since the 70s, Europeans have pretty well shown us how to play that game on the four balls and the you see those first 2 days this year, and we just get our teeth handed to us on a silver platter, right? And it just seems like that they grew up competing in that sort of a format, and it's there, and we're just not as good that way. It always seems like that's where they win it when they win it. Now, I don't have all the evidence, but certainly we could just look to this last one and say, look, they were kicking our teeth in. And then we made this miraculous comeback that had we not done that, it would have been a bloodbath.
Right.
So it makes me wonder, did they just go practice on these greens more? Was it strictly just the putting? I haven't looked at too many of the statistics, but it sure looked like it on TV.
Yeah,
it sure like we were close, but no cigar so many times with the putts that it was just over because they weren't missing.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just take that a step further, right? I mean, Ron was talking about this also in the first segment. Like the course setup seemed like one of the first misses of how we went into this event. I mean, Bethpage Black, I mean, there's the warning sign, right? Everyone sees the warning sign and how difficult the golf course is.
I've played it. It's brutal.
It sure seemed like it played awfully easy for those guys. I know we got some rain that week, but my goodness, it just seemed easy and they made everything.
Well, I mean, this is a testament, I think, of a couple things. First, these guys are terrific, right? They're the best players in the world. Let's not make any bones about this. But that golf course did not seem like it was as brutal as it was when I just went out and played it one day, and it just was terrible. I mean, it was hard to finish because that's just a mean old nasty punch in the mouth golf course. And it didn't seem like it played like that for anybody. So I'm wondering, was there any advantage for having that golf course play a little bit easier? I don't know. But I do know those guys are great. And I'm not going to second guess the golf course because everybody had to play it, right? Both teams are out there playing the same course. They all could have had the same lies, but it just seems like from what I saw on television, it seemed like it was more of a putting contest.
Indeed. So as we look ahead to 27, some folks are starting to suggest from a team captain perspective that maybe we need to look in a different place. Ron Sirak talked about Nick Saban. People have talked about, a Coach K, or maybe you look at a Michael Jordan, or maybe you go back to some of the guys that may be playing on the Champions Tour instead of just having someone who's one of their buddies out there as the captain. Do you think we need to look at a wholesale change along those lines?
Oh, I doubt wholesale change. I mean, certainly I think that having those people that you just mentioned are great motivators and they're great champions. Michael Jordan, certainly one of the greatest ever in any sport. You could always say he's, literally the best to second best of every athlete you've ever seen. And he could provide some things about winning. So can Nick Saban and Coach Krzyzewski and, people like that. I think that would be kind of a really good idea, but I don't know about this wholesale change thing, because players respond and respect players. Those who have been there and done it, whether they won or whether they lost, if they're a real player, I think that will really get through to an awful lot of the players who are actually, on the team competing. I think there's a camaraderie. I think there's a trust built. I think there's a familiarity with the players because they know who they are. And I think that they would know who could be paired best with who from a not just skill set standpoint, but from understanding how they play the game and, do they even get along perspective. So I'm not sure I would try to just go remove the idea of removing a player and put in someone who's not a player as the captain. I think maybe bring some of those other folks in for other things that could help. But, from what I can see, the players still have to play. And I don't doubt the fact that they were motivated. I don't think any of them were out there just to be there like it was some ho-hum event that they didn't really care about, but they had some room in their schedule. I'm not thinking at all that these guys weren't motivated, but I certainly think that bringing some of these other people in could add a certain element, a spark to things. Couldn't hurt.
Certainly couldn't hurt. Yes. Let's switch it up a little bit, Jeff.
Sure.
You posted on social media recently a saying that goes, "Failure teaches what success cannot." Talk about what you mean by that.
You learn tough lessons by failing. And you learn those because they hurt. Whether it be in your sporting life, your personal life, or any other way of walking in life, when you have failed at something, it is a true wake-up call, and it is a motivator to be better, because failure hurts. Because success is, yes, smile, raise your hands in the air. I got this trophy in my hand, and that's fleeting. You don't learn great things, big lessons in life by winning. That's the reward for working very hard and succeeding. But the failure teaches you why and what you must do to not fail again. And I think that's kind of important. And I'm not sure who said it, but I read it somewhere and it meant a lot. And so I put it out there. Because whether you're talking about golf or football or basketball or personal life issues or work issues or anything, you could look at that whole thing and say, man, let's learn from our failures so we don't do it again.
One of the ways we as players tend to get in our own way, Jeff, whether it's out on the golf course or on the practice range or wherever it is we overthink things. How do you teach your students to not overthink everything?
Here's a thing that I did, and I, oddly enough, I did this on a tee box at Pine Canyon. I shot a little video, and maybe I'll put it up on social. It's about how to shake free on everything and just focus on the one thing that matters at that moment. So you create yourself a nice little routine, but you do some things that get the little bugaboos out of your head so you won't freak out a little bit on the tee and overthink things. And so imagine yourself standing on the first tee and you got the first tee jitters. And all of a sudden you got what you think is all these people watching you. But really it's the same people that are going to watch you on every shot, on every tee box, all 18 holes. So what's it matter? Why is that one such a big deal? And then you tend to overthink and you stress a little bit. So I tell people, hey, look, let's create a little routine and let's look down the fairway and let's tell ourselves, man, this hole is beautiful. I love this hole and I'm just going to go hit it there. And now all of a sudden you've taken a little bit of that thought that could be on some other thing that doesn't need to be there and just put it something that you're a bit more calm. And, you've got a little bit now of this is what I'm going to do, as in, because I'm just going to hit it there. And then I'll just say, okay, why don't we take a couple deep breaths, like in through the nose and out through the mouth, and slowly do a few of those, and then walk up, focus on your target, and just say, that's exactly where I'm going to hit it. And for the next 15 seconds of your life, be dialed into only that. And then all of a sudden you create this routine, and then it becomes easier and easier and easier. So I tell people to practice on the range doing the same thing, so that every shot they hit feels the same. Their process was the same. Their emotions were the same. Because sometimes people overthink things because all of a sudden they decide that this shot has far more value than the one they just hit on the range.
I love it.
So we try to get them to devalue the first shot of the day. And at the same time, when you're practicing, you're putting more value on the practice shots. Now, all of a sudden, you're kind of blending those two things together. And now it's easier to have a routine. And then routines make people a bit more calm. And interestingly enough, I battled, and here I am preaching about a routine in golf, and yet I battle having much of a routine in my own life. And it's really interesting, that dichotomy, because there's some things I just feel like, man, I just want to go do this right now. And instead of sticking to some basic routine that actually makes me a better person and a better performer in everyday life, I'm coaching people to have a routine right before they go hit a golf shot. So it's interesting how that is, right?
Indeed.
Hey, how about physician heal thyself, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Jeff, just a couple more before I let you go. And as we get closer to the holidays, and then obviously once we turn the calendar to the new year, we start to think that, hey, we can go out there and buy ourselves a better golf game with all the new technology that's going on, game improvement clubs coming out, the new model years are out there. We think we can go out there and buy ourselves a game. And really what I wish that people would think differently about is, instead of investing in, the new model year driver or whatever, especially now that it's starting to get colder outside and we're going to be in the house a lot of times, or indoors more often than not. It seems like instead of taking that money and giving it to, the outlet of your choice, maybe if you went and gave that money to your local PGA professional, that might be a better way to get yourself into buying a new game. What are your thoughts?
I would agree with you. Now, I know that you're talking to a teacher and everybody understands. Here it is. Sounds like we're giving ourselves a plug, as opposed to the next manufacturer with their next driver, with their next same promise that sounds all the same. It's like, well, wait a minute. Didn't you do that the last 5 years? Is it really any better? Is it really the equipment, or is it something that, is it your stubbornness or your ego that says, I don't want a golf lesson, I can do this myself? Realistically, if you learn to do some things that your body can actually reproduce, and that you can get a club on the ball to tell the ball to go do what you want, you can put almost any club in your hand and make that happen. And yes, there's some clubs, of course, that would make it happen better than others, and that is done by proper club fitting. But just keep that in mind. If you go out and grab something off the shelf thinking that's going to be the next magic pill, it wasn't on the last one, and it wasn't on the one before that, and it wasn't on the one before that either. So why wouldn't you at least change gears in your mind enough to say, maybe the way I'm trying to go about this doesn't work on a repeatable basis for me. I might catch 1 out of 20 pretty well, but why wouldn't I learn something from a great teacher who's been around and can make you do something very easily to do and get you to perform? And then why wouldn't you stick with that? If you see the performance, why wouldn't you do that?
Agreed.
Yeah. Spoken like a teacher. I know.
As you know, James Hong and Scott Monroe are going to be joining me here on the show in a couple of weeks. What's something that nobody knows about? You have them
both on the same show at the same time?
Not at the same time, one after the other. Yeah,
okay, good.
You couldn't put the Wonder Twins together at the same time. Who knows what would happen? But what's something nobody knows about those two guys that I can spring on them?
Oh boy. Okay. Money's nickname is 99.
Okay.
And James really, really wants to shave off the little chin goatee thing that he's got going on now.
Does he?
He does. He wants it off.
But the wife won't let him?
I don't know what's going on there, but yeah. Just tell him, just go ahead. Just do it when nobody's looking.
I will absolutely do that. So you got to tell me, as you know, I've now gone through ankle replacement surgery twice in the last, almost year now. So I'm trying to rehab that thing, and the most important thing for me as I look into the future is I got to get it ready to go for the PGA merchandise show.
That's great.
In late January.
I'd love to see you there. I'd love to see it. If you could make it, that would be great. We'd love to have you doing something at Open Forum. That would be a terrific thing to have your podcast there with us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to try to make that happen. So you got to tell me, are we gonna get 2 Hoosiers and a Hong this year at the merchandise show?
We might be able to pull 2 Hoosiers and a Hong off on that one. That'd be Scott Monroe and me and 2 Hoosiers and the Honger, right? That'd be a heck of a thing. We might be able to pull off a little something, but at least we could do it on your show at the PGA show if you come to Open Forum.
Yep.
And do a little mess with us. We could at least do that. That would be entertaining, and to say the least.
I agree. So let's try to make that happen.
Love to see it.
Before I let you go, Jeff, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're out there doing, whether they're doing it online or on social media.
Well, interestingly enough, so I'm fortunate enough to teach at 2 private clubs that are both absolutely wonderful. But if somebody wanted to get a hold of me, certainly just send me an email at jmspga@pga.com. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Jeff Smith Golf Instruction on Instagram. And Facebook, it's just facebook.com/Jeff Smith, and you'll find me. It's pretty easy.
Jeff, you are one of the best in our industry. There's no doubt why, because you're incredibly smart, you're incredibly intelligent, you're incredibly good at what you do. And I know I was joking in your intro, but you are one of the most sought after people in our industry, and that's for very good reason. Well,
I think that you have done more publicity for me than anybody else. And I sure appreciate that. That's awfully kind of you to say those things.
Jeff, take care, my friend. All the best to you and your family. I hope we get this privilege again soon.
I hope so too. And take care of that ankle. We know that, we're all thinking about you and kind of giving you a big pat on the back and say, let's get this thing done. Let's get you back up and healthy.
I appreciate that very much.
All right.
All the best to you and your family, Jeff.
Thanks. You too.
See ya.
We'll see ya. That's
a great Jeff Smith, folks. Again, you can find him online. Jeff Smith Golf Instruction is where you're going to find him out on Instagram. jmspga@pga.com is where you can send him an email. And look, those weekend golf guys, there's a reason why that's one of the best podcasts, regardless of sport. You can go out there and you can listen to Jeff and John, and they're going to make you laugh. They're going to make you feel good about yourself. You're going to walk away from that, as he's talked about at the beginning, right? They don't really get into all of the golf tournament sort of stuff, but they talk golf, and then it's just a fun conversation. The best thing about their show, in my humble opinion, is you're going to have a smile on your face for the entirety of the show, because they're just going to make you smile and laugh and on all that sort of stuff. So it's a feel-good kind of show that you're going to enjoy subscribing to and listening to. So I can't recommend that show highly enough. And Jeff Smith is, on top of being a top 100 instructor for Golf Magazine, is just one of the best people on the planet. That's the thing you walk away, any conversation you have with Jeff, anytime you're around him, you feel like you've just been around a guy that's just one of the best people you'll ever meet. So thanks to Jeff for being a part of the show as often as he has. It's the 4th time that he's been kind enough to join me. Hopefully we get the privilege of having him back on the show again before too long. And 2 Hoosiers and a Hong has got to happen at the PGA Merchandise Show. So I look forward to that too. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on part 1 of this week's show. My sincere thanks to 2 of the all-time greats, Ron Sirak and Jeff Smith, for joining me this week. Now come back for part 2, because David Eby is going to make his next On the Tee debut. A guy who played his college golf at Augusta University. did a stint over at Augusta National, so you know we're going to talk all about that. He's been doing great things now for nearly 30 years down at Banyan Golf Club in Palm Beach, Florida. So you're really going to enjoy David. I did, and I know you're going to have a good time as well, hearing about some of the great people that he's had an opportunity to be on the bag for when he was at Augusta University, going over to Augusta National to caddy, and then being an assistant pro there for a little bit, and then onward throughout his career. So, folks, I cannot thank you enough for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Thank you for pressing play and making Next on the Tee a part of your regular golf content. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on Trib Live or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.